Welcome to Dive Deep. I'm your host, Caleb Swartz. Our goal here at Dive Deep is transformation. And during this series, we're exploring the transformation that Pastor Arlie and CWC have experienced during his leadership and care. In today's episode, we're going to share a memory from someone that's been impacted by Pastor Arlie and allow him to respond. Then we're going to hear some additional background on what was happening during the development of the sermon. Kick back and relax as we take a journey down memory lane in the vintage collection. Pastor Arlie, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks. Good to be here.
Glad to have you. And keeping with proper form, we're going to have a story from someone that has had a really fun and unique experience with you.
Oh, no. Okay.
So Garrett Gessner is calling, and he's going to tell you a little bit about some memories he's had with you.
Okay.
Where do you start with the question, your best memory of someone that you've known your entire life? It's kind of a tough one. I would have to say one of the best memories I've had with Pastor Arlie is getting to spend 10 days in a total different country, thousands of miles across the sea in Africa at the age of 13. You get to spend 10 days with somebody that far away from home, kind of become family, and that's how I kind of look at Pastor Arlie. He is part of my family. I'm part of his family. Yeah, you get to learn a lot from spending 10 days with somebody. You get to realize how loving, compassionate, and just a great person they are. And their passion to love people is what really separates him from anyone I know. His smile, very contagious. And again, that's what really separates him from any other person that I know. Now, if I could add another little memory that really will always stick with me, it has to be doing all the chicken barbecues for the all church banquet and just his reaction every year over and over about how good this chicken really was. Well, might let you in on a little secret, PA. I'm still not giving you the recipe. But it will always stick in my heart the way that you were so grateful and happy for everyone's hard work that everybody put in to make that day possible. That would have to be my two greatest memories that I've shared with Pastor Arlie.
Wow. Can you share maybe a memory from the Africa trip with Garrett?
Yeah, I mean, I have a picture of that in my at home in just a collection of pictures of Africa and that particular experience. We had one incredible trip on that one. We saw hundreds of kids give their heart to Christ. It was like phenomenal.
Was that the first Sierra Leone trip? Is that what?
No, this was in Zambia.
Oh, Zambia. Okay.
Yeah, and we all split into groups and went to different kind of villages for a meal. I was a photographer instead of one who dined on the meal that was brought to us.
Is that premeditated?
Yes. They kept inviting me, and I kept, smiling, going, no, I need to take pictures. This is, it was a goat that they were eating. We saw the goat first,
right, on
a platter. I won't even describe everything we saw on that platter.
Very natural.
Natural. Definitely. And then they cooked it and then served it to us.
Hey,
no,
that's the way they do it.
I know. And I just took lots of pictures, really enjoyed the trip. We had so many young adults on that trip. That was a huge number that were a part of that. It was a blast. It was an absolute blast on that trip. We just enjoyed it so much. And the experiences for every one of us, just like we played games every night because that's the way we were just kind of locked in. There was nothing. We were just in a compound. There was nothing else but that. So we'd come together. We'd all play games and it was awesome. Both my kids were on that trip, our whole family. So Garrett and his dad and Chad Heisey and Brent and Brandon and a whole bunch of them. And I remember Chad Heisey saying, I think I'd like to just come to the Davis house and watch you guys play games. He said, I don't want to play. I just want to watch you because we're very competitive.
Oh, really? I wouldn't have
surprise.
guessed that.
And we just had so much fun. It was a great trip. And Garrett was one of the younger ones, but I think everybody kind of took him under their wing and took care of him. It was great.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of fun.
That was awesome.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm certain you're going to have plenty of opportunities to continue doing that type of work.
I hope so. That's something I really love and am passionate about, too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm certain of that.
Yeah.
So the sermon from this week was around boundaries and the idea and concept of boundaries. Happened originally, you developed this in 2009.
That is correct.
Yeah. Let me tell you a little bit about what was happening in 2009.
All right, go for it.
Okay. Start on a down note.
All right.
We're still feeling the effects of the 2007 recession. Remember that? And the housing market popped.
I remember looking at my retirement and
I bet.
Dropped significantly.
Yeah.
Took years to rebuild that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that was quite, and that significantly shaped Gen Zs.
Mm-hmm.
They are very different financial thinkers than any generation before them because of that. Which is really interesting. They say the average 18-year-old has a savings account with a proportionate to their potential income is actually significant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like, okay, well,
all right.
There you go. 2009, Michael Jackson died.
This is depressing stuff.
know,
Is this
sorry.
all you're going to have?
No, I got some good things.
Okay, let's go with it.
Kanye West stormed the stage during Taylor Swift's acceptance speech.
Okay, a memory.
Yeah,
Right.
Jacob and Isabella were the top baby names,
Ah,
likely attributed to the Twilight series.
got it.
Sony sold 12 million floppy disks, and then the next year completely stopped selling them altogether. They were still using floppy disks in 2009.
Wow.
Isn't that fun? Avatar becomes the highest grossing film of all time. Remember Avatar? Did you watch it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a lot, though. I'm
Yeah.
not too much into that. Yeah.
Okay. It was neat, though.
Yeah.
H1N1, the swine flu, was declared a pandemic. So
Who knew?
we were 2 pandemics in one lifetime.
Wow.
Look at that.
Hmm.
What do you remember happening in 2009? What was going on in CWC or the Milton area or around here?
When I think about that, that's like, 2 years after my son had gotten out of college. So we were just kind of readjusting. My daughter's still in. I think he might have been in grad school at that point. That might have been time that all 4 of us were in college at the same time. Yeah.
Oh, my.
Oh, yeah. Talk about educational bills.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, I think all of us were because my daughter was still in undergrad, my son was in grad, my wife was in grad, and I was in grad.
Wow. That would have been very active.
Yeah.
And when you all came together, the only thing you wanted to do was not talk about anything educationally related.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think we were we've kind of gone like growth cycles that have been apart. We've had some leveling off, some kind of depression a bit. I think we might have been moving down right then. I can't remember exactly, but I have to look at the bar graph. But yeah, we needed to kind of regroup. And I think we started to regroup right around there, 9, 10, and started back up.
Yeah, because I came back in 2012, and we were there's a lot of energy at that time.
That must have been the reason.
I don't think I would attribute it to that, but thank you, very humbly. So as we looked at this message of boundaries, and what a great message. I mean, if you can take a spiritual truth and teach it to a secular audience, I feel like this is one of the best ones you can do. It's just, it makes sense.
Doesn't it?
It's logical, it's wise, it's truth, and it works, it's proven.
Right.
So we actually had and I thought this was interesting, a listener had commented and asked the question just about your comments with Adam's interactions with God after the apple and all that. And I guess he made the observation that Adam didn't just blame his wife, he tried to blame God.
Right.
And I'm curious if you want to respond to kind of some of the comments or expound on that. And then is that go ahead, yeah.
Obviously, I was taking 2 or 3 week sermon and cramming them into 1 week. So I was trying to fly through it as first. And so I was really just trying to talk about the interpersonal relationships that we have and how those are, and how we're not willing to own blame or take blame ourselves. We're always trying to shift blame. And, if I were actually going to work on that topic a whole lot better, which I think I have in the past, I've actually done that and talked about the creation, Adam and Eve, and how Adam actually blamed God, and first he blamed Eve, but the woman you gave me, like he was really pointing out,
Right.
it was God's fault.
Yeah.
Which that's all very valid, very true, because he was blame shifting from the beginning.
Yeah.
But I was just trying, at this point, I was just trying to talk about interpersonal skills and how we will blame shift in our relationships.
Yeah.
And that's something that's been kind of naturally from the very beginning.
Do you think it is part of our nature to, whenever we encounter a failure in our own lives, whether it's a boundary that we violate or has been violated against us, to shift from blaming a person to blaming God? Is that an easy step to take, or does that require someone to be at a certain place in their faith journey to just shift that quickly?
I don't think anybody realizes that we're always ultimately blaming God.
That's interesting. Go deeper into that.
Because I ultimately, as a believer, nothing comes into my life except through God's hand. So how do I respond to what I don't like? I'm ultimately blaming God for whatever I don't like or I feel like shouldn't have happened or whatever. And I just need to own my own kind of responsibility, or otherwise I'm never going to grow. That's the biggest thing.
Okay, so blaming God versus accepting that this happened as a result of fallen world, and it's my job to respond to it, not react to it. So is that maybe what you're trying to say?
Absolutely, because I think that the ultimate thing is that, ultimately, God is the one who's in control of my life, and if I'm angry at you, I really am angry at God for bringing you into my life and for allowing this to happen. And so I've got to really come to grips with owning my own responsibility, my own, how I handle life, how I deal with it, and really being grateful in all things. That's why he says, give thanks in everything. Certainly not a desirable kind of thing that we want to do it out of our will.
Right.
But
right.
I do it not out of my emotion, but out of my will, that I'm going to thank God because he has a bigger plan for my life.
Yeah. And yet in some capacity, we obviously have responsibility in the process, because we all have relationships we can look at in our lives and say, like, okay, here's a healthy one that builds into me. Here's a healthy one where we both build into each other. Here's maybe a healthy one where I build more into that person.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole list of unhealthy ones.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How do you balance selecting which ones you continue or don't continue, or what healthy percentages would somebody want to try and see if they sat down and put it all on paper?
I'm one that really thinks that when we are functioning in a burnout capacity, it's just my perspective. I'm not trying to write a book or tell everybody else they need to feel this. But I always feel when people are burnt out, it's because they're trying to operate in their own skills and their own strengths. Because God's resources are unending. He has plenty for me. And so as long as I'm depending on him, I'm not going to face that. Now, how do I make sure I am selective in how I invest my energies?
Right. Which that's the harder way to execute what you're talking about. Because there's a whole list of things that we can look at and say, well, that's just bad and unhealthy. I'm not going to do any of that.
Right.
There's a whole list of good things we can look at, but we're not called to do all of them.
No.
It's just, what is my lane?
Right. And so then how am I going to invest my energies to be able to see the greatest about that God wants to accomplish, as a result? And so I try to be balanced in all of that and how I'm going to respond. And balance is the hardest thing that any one of us does. You think,
right, because you only know you're out of balance when things feel terrible.
Right. And you think about walking on a balance beam, and that's a challenge because you can't lean one way or the other too much or you're out of balance. And so the fact is, in relationships, trying to keep those in balance. everybody is different.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get
Sure,
energy
yeah.
from people.
Mm-hmm.
I probably take theirs. But an introvert, loses energy with people. So I'm probably getting theirs. That's probably how it happens. I'm not sure. Anyway.
There's a whole sermon, I think, behind that.
I think I'm thinking about it, yeah.
Wow, okay.
Maybe that's the next book. But anyway, so when I look at that, then I can't like withdraw from people, or I find myself like, finding like emptiness because I need that energy. Somebody who's more of an introvert, they need to withdraw. So I think you have to figure out where your balance is in who you are, your personality. It's not the same for me as it is for you. We're all wired differently. And then try to find out how I function best and most effectively. Right. And so I think we all have to kind of function in those kind of thought processes. And I think we grow in all of that as well. And so account for that. That's a little percentage more that you need to add. Push yourself a little harder than you're comfortable. Invest a little more than you think you have. Those are all parts of those pieces that I think draw us closer to God, more dependency on Him, and we see ourselves accomplishing more than we ever thought we could on our own, which is what God wants to do.
Yeah.
And so then we find ourselves, what are the things that drain energy from me? Then I'm going to have to do those less. And I'm going to have to, if they're people that I find I'm draining energy every time I'm with them, I don't care if I'm an introvert or an extrovert. If I find that they are draining for me, then I need to start seeing them a little bit less. Now, if it's in our family, that's a little more challenging.
That's different.
But realistically, I think we shape the world that we live in, and then we are responsible for that.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a whole process.
Awesome. And I think maybe a good strategy would be sit down with a close friend or with your spouse and talk through this. What does the balance look like for me?
Yeah. I think that's all healthy.
Well, thanks so much for your insights today, Pastor Arlie.
Great to talk.
And thanks for spending some time with us today on CWC Dive Deep. Join us next week as we continue sharing memories from the vintage collection. We've got more fun stories in the weeks coming up, so be sure to tell others about the podcast so they can listen in. If you've missed past episodes, check those out at cwc.life/dive-deep. Have a great week.